Hi, thanks for coming. I'm Mathilde Lemee, I'm working for Terracotta. We're gonna talk a little bit about FluentLenium. So FluentLenium is a wrapper around Selenium. I suppose most of you know what is Selenium, but in 2 words, it's a tool that will give you the opportunity to launch some Firefox or Chrome or others and automate the way you interact with them. It means that if you want to test your website, it's the kinds of tool you're going to use. So that is a Selenium test, so it's a basic one. You just get a Firefox driver, which will set up an instance of Firefox on your laptop or whatsoever. You're gonna ask him to get to one URL, and after that you're gonna do some interaction with it. So for example, here we do send keys FluentLenium to the Bing search input, and after that we submit the form, and we are just asserting that the title of the result contains the word FluentLenium. That's the same kind of stuff with FluentLenium. We try to give to user a more fluent and more easy API, less verbose. Okay, we're still in Java, but we try to have less verbose stuff. So the first thing I want to be sure that is everyone knows the CSS Basics, because FluentLenium targets developers that have a basic knowledge of CSS. We only use CSS because when you do front web, most of the time you work with jQuery or other JavaScript frameworks, and finally you know your CSS selectors. The first one is that one. That means that it's the elements that have the ID, my ID. That is all the elements that are link A. And that means I want all my class that have the class my class. I want all the elements that have the class equals to my class. Okay, so imagine you've got a brother. No, the first thing you want to do is really to say, okay, I want that this input have this text. I want to know what the text of that element. I want to know what's my title. I want to know how many bullets I have on my list and stuff like that. So first of all, you're gonna try to find something. So that's what you're gonna do with FluentLenium. If I do find my ID, it means that I will find all the elements that have the ID, my ID. Normally, if you respect, it should be only one, but it's a list. It's the same for the elements and exactly the same for the class. So that's the way you do the find. If you get the hands on your page, most of the time that's sufficient. But sometimes you use generator stuff, or it's maybe other teams that do a widget on your web page if you're working for a big website. The problem with that is that sometimes it's complicated. So if you know well CSS, it's okay, because CSS is kind of big. I mean, you can select the NS element or the third element on your list, or you can select all the elements that does not contain that stuff and stuff like that. But most of the people don't know that really well. So we provide, in fact, a filter API to help people to really target the elements they want on the page. So you can filter like that with the name, things that, okay, I want to find all the elements that have a class small and with the name is foo. Okay, so you get name, you've got with class, you've got with ID, you can filter by ID, you can filter by text, you can filter by attributes. So you give the attributes you want, and you're gonna have more again, you can eventually be more precise. If you don't know really what the elements will be, you can know, maybe the only thing you know is that your element contains the foo strings, or maybe you only know that it contains the word, the foo, but as a word, okay, with space, especially when you want to specify a class, okay, if you just want to know the class. And so you've got a lot of filtering like star series, and weights, contains, and regex, and so on. Okay. So now you really know how to find your elements. Okay, but you want to interact with it. So the way you interact with it, the first interaction you've got with your driver, the browser, is to saying what page you want to go. Okay, that's kind of easy. And after that, maybe you will say, okay, so I went to Google and I want to find the buttons named Create Buttons, and you want to click on it. And that's all. And it's exactly what you want to do, find and click. You can also use a shortcut. If you want for basic action, you always have shortcut, like stuff like you can clear, you can submit, you can click, you can double click. For those kind of things, you've got alias, but you also can use the find methods if you prefer to use that way. But if you get a form, clicking is not enough. You want to fill your form with the values you want. So you can fill the element with the ID name, with the value devax. You can do the same thing using the find way of doing it. That's CSS elements. That means select all the inputs that doesn't have the type checkbox, and you fill them with the value tomato. That's the same with a filter, exactly the same. It depends if your team are fluent with CSS or not. Okay. So that's the way you fill the form. I already said it, so you can submit it and you can clear it. Okay. And it's not verbose. You only know what you want to do, and you only have to type it and it's working. Regarding the assertions, lots of test frameworks provide you some assertion stuff. We don't. Okay, so use the assertion you like. You can use the TestNG1, the Amcrest, the Fast Assert if you like. We have a separate project that provide some Fast Assert stuff, but it's not a lot. But most of the time you can use your own assertions. So that's the example with Fast Asserts. So now that we see a little bit the basic, let's try to write our test. So first, I will go to big.com. I will fill the search input with the text FluentLenium. I'm just going to submit my form and be sure that the title contains FluentLenium, and that's working. Okay, but what do you think if one guy is in your team write that, but 50 or 100 tests like that with all the strings, and one guy came and say, "Oh no, we will not do that exactly like that. No, it will be maybe the ID will change." Okay, and then you say, "Okay, of course everybody will use replace, but if you don't have replace, it means that you will have to do on every test some modification again and again." So that's nice, because if someone just came just looking about what's on the screen, it will understand what I want to do, but because it's readable, but it's not maintainable. Okay, and now we will see the page object pattern. Regarding, no matter the frameworks you use when you do UI testings, no matter, this pattern is really, really, really important. How many of you knows it? How many knows it? Okay, that's good. Okay, so for those who don't know, page object pattern is really important. Sometimes you've got tests like that, okay, and some company. So as I already said, that's not good, not maintainable, so you want to avoid it. So Selenium tests can easily become a mess, even more than unit testing. Okay, so to avoid this, we use this pattern, and in fact, we're going to separate two stuff. We will have the test, who will be functional, and we will have all the plumbings that will be on a page object. So your page, your test will say, page, please log me to with that username and that login. And the page say, okay, I know, because I know that this username should go to that input and this password with that input, and the name of my submit form and the name of my form is that one, so I can submit it like that. You will really have a separation of concern between your test, which will stay functional, and your page object, who will really stay at low level, knowing what the DOM is or what the DOM should be. So it's separate concern, so it's improved readability because your test will really stay functional, and that's really important. It's maintainable because if some guys say, okay, we're going to do that another way, you say, okay, I've got one page object to modify, and that's working. So my pony is happy. So the easiest way to think to the method as page object pattern is asking, okay, what services my page is offering? And you just take that question, you answer it, and you know which methods should be on that page. Another thing that is important, your test is doing the test. So you never put assertions on your page object patterns. Your test, let him do that, is good at that. Your page only know which service am I offering to the user. And it hides the internals of the page. You should never see a CSS selector normally in a test, because it's if you do just 2 or 3 tests, that's okay, of course. That's a question of the number of tests you've got. But if you've got a lot of tests, we really had to avoid to have this CSS or HTML stuff in your test. So that's a basic pattern. I think most of the Selenium wrappers provide you a way to do that. The way we do it's to extend the Fluent page, and then you've got the first method, which you can override, and you will just give a string with the URL. So I said just before that the page shouldn't have any assertions. That's not exactly true. You've got one method called isAt, which can have assertions. And normally it should be the only one. So you can override this method, and you will put there what you think to be sufficient to be sure that you is on the good page. And after that, you will provide your methods, like login and get the errors and stuff like that. So let's see some examples to be more precise. So as I said, you extend a Fluent page. You can provide a get URL. You can provide, here I just choose, it depends on the use case, but just doing a assert on the title is enough. If I've got the good title, I suppose I'm on the good page. And after that, you provide your method. So it's a login page, so I provide a login method, which has 2 params, username and password, but you offer whatever your page do. And I also have the get errors, because for my test, I need to know if I get errors or not. So that's the 2 methods I provide. That's the 2 services my page provides. And in my test, I will use the annotation add page to define a page during my normally test. So that's it means something. It means the add test annotation, but normally it should be there. So here I say, okay, go to my page, logging with my login and my password, and just assert that I've got the good numbers of errors. And that, if someone changes the way logging is working, it's okay, because my tests stay functional, so it's not, I don't have to modify it. So in a maintainable point of view, it's better than to have string and CSS selector and ID directly in my test. It's really a separation of concern, and it's really important. Okay, with Selenium, Selenium is really good when you going from page to page, but when you have a website with a lot of Ajax on it, things begins to be a bit different. So you've got some methods to handle that. You've got, in fact, two ways of define global waiters. I mean that you say, if my element is not present, please wait maybe 5 seconds that he showed. Sorry, it's not really English. So I suppose you understand what I want. But it's the default, the timing will wait before failing when you don't find an element. Okay, but if you put that if your number is too big, it will slow your test when they fail and stuff like that. So you can't say, okay, let's put 5 minutes there just to be sure that we will have no problem with AJAX requests. It's not working like that. So in fact, you will have to find which numbers work the best. And sometimes it's not enough, because sometimes, for example, you can use also Selenium to monitoring your prediction website. And sometimes when your prediction website takes too long to do some things, you want to be alerted. You want that someone who is failing saying, okay, we've got a problem in prediction, we're too slow. We're working, but we're too slow. So that's putting a default on that kind of problematics, that is not working. So we provide, in fact, an API to await. So it's always the same stuff. We say await at most, where you say the number you want, until something happens. You can put function, predicate here, but you can also use, again, the CSS selector to define some interaction with your page. So here it will be until I've got something with the class small on my page. Okay. If it appears before the 5 seconds, everything will be okay. If it's after, it will fail. So I can have is present, but I also have a lot of stuff to indicate, like maybe I want an element with that name, with that text, an element that contains text or that has an ID, a size greater or lesser than, 3, 2, 4, 5, whatever you want. You can also assert that your elements are displayed, enabled, presence, and you can also add filter here again. So if you say here, we've got until an element with class small with attributes that starts with X, W, and Z is present. So you can do a lot of stuff like that, but just keep in mind that the more simple you stay, the more easier the people behind you will maintain your test. So if you get the end of the page, all it tries to put the good ID on the good place. Okay, so that's another page. The only thing I want to show you here is that if you look at the top of the class, you've got 2 Fluent Web elements. Okay, and that's working even if we never instantiate them. Okay, that's Selenium and FluentLenium stuff who handle that. And in fact, what is there is that if you declare a Fluent Web element on the top of the class or on the field, you can do it in other stuff. But if you declare a field Fluent Web element, he will try on the page to find something that has the ID or the name corresponding. So for example, if I just type that, when I do the logging methods, he say, okay, username, okay, you want to access to username, okay, so I will look into the DOM of the page and trying to search something that starts with username. If there's no ID username on my page, you say, okay, does someone have the name like that? And it will do that kind of stuff. That, again, is not something that's magic. It's just something that can make your page more readable again. And again, when we do Selenium testing, the problem is not really the test. The problem really is how much my test is maintainable. And that's really the focus you have to have in mind when you're writing Selenium, and that this test costs a lot to maintain. And I will finish there because it's finished. But if some of you want to talk about that, I'm here until Friday. So thanks a lot.